السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين ولا تقولوا لمن يقاتل في سبيل الله أموات بل أحياء ولكن لا تشعرون ولنبلونكم من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم ورحمة وأولئك هم المهتدون. صدق الله العظيم.
MashaAllah, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. Bayan's actually going to give the translation. Oh, unless you don't know what our names are. This is Bayan.
Hey.
And I'm Mikhail.
Alright, so thank you for that beautiful recitation. I'm going to be reading the translation, and for everybody to be on the same page, we're going to have the recitation up on the screen whenever it pops up. You know what? It'll pop up when it feels like it. I'm just going to go ahead and start. Alright. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. O believers, seek comfort in patience and prayer. Allah is truly with those who are patient. Never say that those martyred in the cause of Allah are dead. In fact, they are alive, but you do not perceive it. We will certainly test you with a touch of fear and famine and loss of property, life and crops. Give good news to those who patiently endure. Who say, when struck by disaster, surely to Allah we belong, and to Him we will all return. They are the ones who will receive Allah's blessings and mercy, and it is they who are rightly guided. Sadaqallah.
All right, thank you so much. And with that, we're going to get to our main topic of the night. As you know, this is an issue that has been close to our hearts for a very long time. We see it on our phones, we hear it from our peers. However, it is important, it is paramount to ensure that we do not let go of the hope within our hearts.
Our speaker tonight has not only conducted many noble missions across the heart of Palestine, but has also interacted with our brothers and sisters there. Through his experience, he was able to see a new perspective from what we see on our phones.
It is our hope that with our speaker, Stories of Humanity, that we will be able to fight against the weight of despair and instead the seeds of optimism within our hearts. We believe that it is important to do so that we may become more hopeful and grow closer to our brethren in Palestine.
Not only is our speaker on the front lines of healthcare here in North Carolina, but also globally. He has just recently returned from a 3-week-long medical mission trip in Gaza, where he interacted firsthand with our brothers and sisters that are living there. Through this experience, he was able to see the strength and resilience of the Palestinian people.
It is our honor to introduce Dr. Ayaz Burhan.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you. I'm going to use. Firstly, let me say that I really appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak. I firmly believe that a lot of great movements in this country and the world are started in the colleges and with the college students. And so I want to say that all of you are inspiring to me, and in a lot of ways inspire me to do what I was able to do. Before I keep going, is Dr. Nabil Rana's daughter here? No. No? Is that a fake no? And that is you? He's a doctor that also served in Gaza and is really a hero to me. So he said his daughter would be here tonight, so I wanted to get a chance to meet her. He did say that she was shy and she may not introduce herself, so I thought I'd call her out on stage. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an introduction to Gaza. I'm going to get off stage. I feel like I'm about to drop the next iPhone. So I appreciate the laughs. I understand this was the stage that was shared by Hassan Minhaj many years ago. So hopefully I can live up to that. But and by introduction, what I really want to do is introduce you to the people and the experience that I had. So tonight, this is what my game plan will be. So I want to talk about why or how I decided to go, like what was it that inspired me. All the pictures and videos that I use in all of my presentations are firsthand. So, including the picture that you see here, it's a picture outside Nasser Hospital, and I've talked about this before, but it's a meaningful picture to me because this is where we had the balcony outside of where the visiting physicians would stay. And from here, you can see on the right side where the mass graves were discovered. On the left side, you can see some destroyed ambulances that were targeted by the IDF. You can see a burned building sort of in the middle there, which is the dialysis center, where the dialysis equipment is very specifically burned. So I'm not here to talk about this picture in particular, but feel free to ask me in the question and answer session about the different pictures that you may see today. I want to introduce you to the people or groups of people that I met, and then lastly, a little bit about what we can do. So what I want to start with is one of the students that I work with. So this is Elham. So hopefully the audio works here, because I want her to be able to give her message. But she understood the assignment. She actually made this for me last week, and she talked for probably like 6-7 minutes, but I'm not going to play all of that. But where she picks up in this story is her family living in a school. And so when people use the term school, nobody's using it as actual school, right? They're using it as a shelter, which is not great shelter, as you may know, based on the bombings that happened in school. So let's hear what she has to say.
We were 100 displaced persons in one room, not exceeding 2 meters by 3 meters. There is no food with any of us, except for a little, or even water. We slept at night hanging, standing from overcrowding. In the morning of the next day, we tried to get out. We tried to get out of school to our homes to eat or drink. The occupation intensed its pumping of us, and we couldn't get out. An hour later, everyone cried out, saying the occupation has advanced with tanks and bulldozers on us, and they will enter the school. The voices were loud and crying, and the shelling intensified around us. And my relative, a girl of no more than 15 years old, was wounded with shrapnel in her eye and uprooted her eye. We didn't find any medic or instrument for help, or even a place. We only stopped the long running bleeding. We were saying goodbye to each other and asking for forgiveness.
So this is unfortunately a very common story. So I had the privilege to be able to work beside people, work beside the students, but also the privilege to eat with them, pray with them, talk with them, hear their stories. So this is a very common story that we hear. So what I'm going to do is back up and answer some questions that almost everybody asks, more about me and maybe why I went, but the reality is that nothing about this is really about me. So I'll kind of fly through this. And actually, I'm not even the most important person in my house. So my wife is director of Lighthouse Project. Get your annual fundraising tickets coming up soon, the gala. And my 3 kids, at least the youngest one, will claim that he's more important than me too. So, ultimately, I'm a witness. That's what I come here as, to tell you about what I have seen with my own eyes and share these stories. I was born in New York. My family's originally from India. I've been in this state for a very long time. I went to Atlanta for my emergency medicine training. And in this country, I've worked at 3 of the top 20 busiest ERs in this country. So the question now is, what made you decide to go? And so it's simple. So as many of you know, in the Islamic faith, one of the key tenets is to enjoin good and forbid evil, right? So this is kind of a basic thing that you've been talking to my kids about. So that is a very big driving force. When you see this evil going on, that you have to do something, right? The other thing is fear. So on the right side, you actually see, right side bottom, you see kind of as one of my lawyer friends say, the death contract that I'm signing that says, when you go there and die, it's not our fault type of thing. And so what about fear drove me? So the story I'd like to really tell people is, we see a lot of school shootings in this country. And you hear these stories about a resource officer who is armed, that is somewhere around on the school premises, and you hear the story about how they may set up in a defensive position. And that is what frightens me. So what frightens me is that there's an opportunity to help, and I fail to help. So that is really what drove me. I thought, this is my opportunity, and if I sit here and don't do anything, that is the worst thing. I am now that police officer who could have probably saved many kids, and I failed to act. I didn't want that to be. There was a lot of fear for that. Meet Fawad. So the backdrop you can see here is rubble. He did not have to go very far from the refugee camp he lives in to find this rubble, because it's all around. I have 500 plus pictures, and I would say 99% of the pictures look like what he has in the background. He was one of my favorite students. He showed up on Friday, and as you may know, Fridays are essentially an off day to go to Friday prayer. And I said, Fawad, what are you doing here, right? Like, I'm working in the yard because what else am I going to do? And he said, well, I'm just staring at my family in a tent. We have no access to internet. I'd rather spend time with you. So I appreciate that, Fawad. What do you have for us?
Hello, my name is Fawad Muhammad. I'm a medical student from North Gaza. I would like to say thank you, UPC, for your protest and for your support and for your voice. It means a lot for us because it may help in this world, in this massacre. I would like to say that we care about what you're doing there for us, because we really hope seeing the other side of life without mumbling, life without bad days. So thank you so much.
It was a common saying that they would always wish to see me in better times, because they do remember the great times. I'll be able to hopefully share some pictures of what things look like. Next introduction, Baby Reem. So Baby Reem was a baby that I took care of in Nasser Hospital, which is in the south. The students that you've heard from are actually from the hospital in the north, Indonesia Hospital. I saw Baby Reem after one of the mass casualty incidences, and we'll see the story here about what happened. So a few questions here. One question people ask is, why do I have one glove? Well, there was mass casualty incidents, and I got blood on the one glove, took that off. And unfortunately, there are not a whole lot of gloves to be used. So it sort of is what we do. So the first question I asked is something I have not really asked before in any kind of talk like this, but do you believe in angels? So I know the answer to that question for a lot of people. But I asked this question because when I saw this child out in kind of the hallway outside of the major trauma bay, which is actually the next question, is why did I see her in the major trauma bay? I asked the person, who I assume maybe was the mother, what happened? And the story I got is that in this building, 20 people around me died. Are there any like paramedics or EMTs in the audience here? Willing to in? Okay, so if you have 20 fatalities at a scene, what do you think the chances of kind of high injury for that 21st person is? High or low? So it's super high, right? So, I thought that was a softball, but it's all right. Okay, so if 20 people around you die, the chances that you come out unscathed is very low, right? So I said, okay, this baby is crying, as you could see when I was examining her. But I said, we need to bring her into the trauma bay and see what's going on with her. So I asked that question about angels because I cannot help but think there had to be some intervention to save her life, and especially to be in the condition that she was in comparatively to the other 20, including her parents and other immediate family. Why did she stop feeding? So that was actually one of the things this NBC story goes into, is that she stopped taking a bottle, and obviously the answer is kind of clear, right? She's been through major trauma, and if a child this age reacts that way, just imagine how children that are 4, 5, 6, teenagers, adults, how they are feeling kind of the mental trauma and all of this. And why did NBC highlight it? Well, actually, it's a good question. I don't know, because in my next slide here, Introduction to the Orphans of Gaza, this is a huge issue. Right? And there's an acronym for that. WCNSF, Wounded Child, No Surviving Family, because it's not something that is uncommon. This is incredibly common. The New York Times article I have there on the top right is actually within about a month or so that's a good one to maybe find and read about. My next introduction is a guy that I have a lot of respect for, Dr. Mohammed Abu Samia. He's the guy on the right, second from the right. Actually, we got a picture of him actually smiling there with us, so that was nice. So, for those of you who may know, is when Shifa Hospital, which was the biggest hospital in Gaza, was besieged, they assumed that there was like terrorist activity going on there. They took him and jailed him. And essentially for 7, close to 8 months, they were not able to charge him with anything. They just held him under some war rules to say, hey, we can hold this guy and see what's going on. Probably not very different than what happened at Gitmo, right? So, we had the opportunity to sit and talk to him and see what it is that he had gone through. So he told us several things, right? So he said almost on a daily basis, there was some form of torture. Several inmates that he was around died. Some of that reasoning was that they were deprived of things like food and medicine, things like that. He himself, they broke his finger, they beat his head, they did all sorts of stuff to him in the process of torture. And lastly, and sadly probably least significant, is that he was insulted and humiliated. This was just a little bit of what he went through for essentially 7 months, and his crime was that he was a director of a hospital. That was it. They couldn't charge him with anything. And then the crazier part, there was actually disagreement. Netanyahu himself said, I don't agree with letting him go. But for what reason? There's no reason to hold him. All right, the next introduction, this is one of my favorite pictures, Meet the Women of Gaza. So the reason why I love this picture in particular, for those that have maybe heard me talk about this, on the left is one day I came in, and I realized that we had an all-female ER team, so that the ER attending and the upper-level resident were both female, and I was like, wow, okay, this is great, I'm gonna let them do their thing. we had a patient who had appendicitis, and so we called the surgery team, and to my surprise, that team on the right were the surgeons. And I was like, wow, this is like amazing. I love it, right? We had a French general surgeon who I actually had called as well about the appendicitis. So he came down, and I was like, "This woman don't need you, man. They got it covered. They'll take care of it." So, you know, it's inspiring to see stuff like that. So meet Iman. She was actually in the last picture. She was one of the students standing beside the surgery team there. So she's going to also tell you a little bit about something that she went through. She uses the term shaheed. For those that don't know, that's the term for martyr or killed on the path of God. So let's hear what she has to say.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Iman Hamouda, 21 years old. I am a third-year medical student at Al-Azhar University. I live in Gaza Strip. Like any person in Gaza, I have many ambitions and dreams that I want to achieve, but the Israeli occupation destroyed everything. At the beginning of the war, I was displaced from my home with my family under the bombing, rockets, and shells. We went to school in Jabalya camp. The school was very bad. There was no water, no electricity, and no medicine. My family, my grandmother, my uncles, and my aunts, about 60 people, were in a very small class. There were no basic necessities of life. The weather was very cold, and there were no clothes or blankets to keep us warm. We had to walk a very long distance to get water. During the war, our house was bombed, and our land was bulldozed by the Israeli occupations. My aunt and her family were shuhada, and many members of my family were killed. We suffered from fear, hunger, displacement, and eviction. 2 days ago, for example, my family was all asleep, but I was awoke. Suddenly, boom! The board and the sky is red. Everyone screaming, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" We are all screaming and saying, "We are okay." The bombing was very close, and the neighbors are screaming, "Muhammad is shaheed! Muhammad is shaheed!" May God have mercy on him. We hope to God that the war will end and that security and peace will prevail in the sector, and that life will return to normal, and that we'll return to our studies at the university and get an education to achieve my dream of completing my medical studies. We need the whole world to hear our voice, feel our suffering, talk about us, and help and support us with the least possible thing. Thank you to IAS for support. Thank you UNC for support. Goodbye.
So Iman told this story, and she said 2 days ago, so keep in mind, look at the timestamp on this. So she's talking about literally a week ago, this bombing that affected her with the neighbor that died. And again, one of my biggest fears is that I keep in contact with these students, these doctors that I work with, and I feel like some anxiety almost every morning that I'm gonna get that WhatsApp message telling me that something happened to one of them. Okay, so introducing the Israeli Defense Forces. I envisioned that people would be right, so that's okay. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I think you can't talk about introducing people to Gaza without actually talking about this. So, again, as I mentioned, people that all of these pictures are my own or firsthand. On the left was my, within the first few minutes of entry into Gaza, we just crossed the border with Israel, and we were greeted by these soldiers who kindly swung their gun around at us and demanded to see something on our phone that showed that we had medical licenses, which made zero sense to me because you let us just pass the border crossing. So, but that's okay. They didn't really care. They weren't coordinated. They could do what they want. So, and when someone's pointing a gun at you, you show them what they need, right? The other soldiers were kind enough to keep their gun pointed downward, but that's essentially where the kindness ended. So, you know, there are a lot of things I can talk about here. What you see here in these pictures on the left and right remind me of when you hear people talk about an open air prison. That is exactly what I experienced. These walls are high, they're barbed wire, they keep people far away from being able to even approach these types of crossings. You know, there are drones that are around this area. The tanks you see here kind of sit on the border, and we would see them go into Gaza and do what they do. So in terms of some stuff that I want to talk about here, really, what do they do? Well, $18.5 billion in damage. And this is, we're talking about schools, hospitals, mosques, churches, homes, whatever. It's what they do. It's what this military community is used for, right? Approaching $400 billion of U.S. aid. And all of that, 3/4 of it is military, right? And you know, I understand the reality that these numbers almost mean nothing to you. They're so high, but the reality is these are real dollars. They are being used for military operations, and we see the result of it. So, and actually to show you some of the results, you know, again, these are kind of the tanks that we have helped pay for with our tax money, and here are the results of what they do with these tanks when they roll into the strip. And I'll tell you that pictures don't do this justice. I've done videos, I've done pictures. None of it really is the same as driving by and seeing the scene over and over and over again. What I will point out is you see that dome on the top picture of the mosque that's obviously collapsed. Here's what it used to look like. You can see the dome in that mosque kind of at the top there. So this blew me away when I saw this because my experience was nothing like this. So when people tell me when I'm there that we hope to see you again in better days, this is the Gaza that they know, that they live. Here's some pictures I took of more military activity. On the left is an F-15. They are firing off these flares to divert heat-seeking missiles. And if you could probably guess that nobody has any kind of surface-to-air missiles in Gaza that are able to use. So what we figured is they were actually doing this and leaving the flares out there just as a warning for people. They would frequently, in the early morning hours, go at top speeds to create sonic booms, which simulated bombs. The irony of all of that is that children would play through bombs all the time. Like they didn't even stop. The first 24 hours I used to actually pause when I would hear a bomb. Soon after that, I realized, okay, we don't worry about it until it actually shakes the hospital. And it's not that we worry about it shaking the hospital, we realize that, okay, it's time to actually get down and get into action. Because if you pause your sentence for every bomb, I would have paused at least once or twice during this talk so far. It is a constant thing. And this hospital in particular was in Khan Yunis, where there's been a lot of military operations. And these pictures are from the balcony that I mentioned before in one of the early pictures. And that faced Rafah, which also there's a lot of military activity despite being in this red line. On the right are actually suspended flares that are used for military movement. So if they wanted to light up the night so they can have tank movement, things like that, that would give us an indication of sort of where where they were going and what they were doing. This picture, I like to tell the story. I'm not going to tell it today, but this, for those that read and understand Arabic, which I do not, but that's okay. People translated what was going on here. We were in the red zone in Indonesia Hospital, and we were marked as an area of military operation. So they basically said, you need to get out of here. And so take a picture of this, come and find me, maybe not today, but some other day, and ask me to tell you the story, and I'll tell you all about it. It's interesting, but that was kind of a high-risk moment when I was there, because we were being asked to evacuate the hospital, and that military action was going to be happening. Thankfully, that didn't end up happening. So. Okay, so meet the mothers of Gaza. So what I'll say about this is I've never had a problem with treating patients in the moment of essentially any age. I'll say that the first time I treated children, once I had children, it was a little bit tough in the moment, but typically I do what I have to do, as most doctors will tell you, and that's that. But what most doctors will also tell you, that this moment is when they realize the impact of what they were doing, chest compressions, procedures, surgeries, whatever it is, you realize that this person you were doing these procedures on, that you were trying to save, that they mean so much to so many people. So this was, as you can imagine, after some mothers were told that their children didn't survive. And so, you know, and you see in the background somebody on the phone, because again, if you stopped, you'd be stopping all day long. I mean, you have to keep going. But for these mothers, it did stop. And what it reminded me of is that I was there on very likely the worst day of their life, their entire life, right? And that will be fine, because it happens in the U.S. Certainly, there are days that I feel that way, that this is absolutely the worst day of this person's life, and I am here either delivering that news or present. But this happened several times a day that I was there, I was present, I was part of the worst day of their lives. I have a short video here. It's 6 seconds. You know, I'm putting up a trigger warning. This is something that I honestly hear it from time to time. So it's actually more the audio, but there's also some visuals. So just bear in mind as I play this. So this was a particularly bad day. The irony of this day is I wasn't supposed to be there. We were supposed to exit, and we were delayed exit. So as has had happened many times before, I just went to work. You know, I'm not going to sit there and be depressed that I'm not able to exit, that the Israelis are making it hard on me. I go to work. And so this was a day in particular where we had 6, and this was actually the 7th child that was rolled into the trauma bay that was age 14 or less. And the thing about this is that the mother didn't even make it into the trauma bay. One of the other doctors told her that he was already dead, and there was nothing we could do. And so, you know, again, you could hear in her voice kind of the disbelief that she brought him here to be saved, to have hope, and we gave her no hope. You see that arm on the right with blood on it, that's not even the blood of that child. That is the blood of another child. So what do mothers experience here in Gaza? Well, you know, significant spikes in mortality, especially when we talk about pregnancy, maternal care, those types of things. Infant mortality is really high. More than 10,000 women are killed since October. They're high risk for mental illness. I mean, Do I even need to explain why that would be the case? And then all of the other stuff that plague everybody else, plague them as well, right? There's no food, sanitation's an issue. Health, just access to health, all of that is a problem. So you can't talk about the mothers of Gaza without introducing people to the children of Gaza, right? So I have lots and lots of pictures of children. So what about the children of Gaza? So who here is a parent? You raise your hand? Okay. Who of those people that have raised their hand have lost your child for 60 seconds and felt that panic? Nobody? I know all of you. All of you have, because I've done the same, right? Now look at this, 20,000 children lost. And we're not talking about the 60 seconds in the shopping mall, right? We're talking about lost. I have no idea where this child is. And now, think about what are the options for your child? Your child is detained, right? Like your 8-year-old was taken into IDF custody. Yes, it's happened, absolutely, right? They're buried in rubble or in graves. I mean, that's an option for your child that you can't find. Or they're simply separated. You have no idea, right? You have no idea where your child is. You know, greater than 16,000 children killed. We've all seen that. 35,000 injured, and that's an underestimate. We're talking about children with more serious injuries. There's so many children that I saw, including the one actually on the left there who has some facial trauma, who won't even go in the category of injured because he wasn't seriously injured enough to have to be hospitalized. And then more than 3,000 with amputations. And if you talk to the ER doctors and specifically the vascular surgeons like Dr. Rana, they will tell you that sniper fire very specifically hits the parts of the joint that are closest to the body to create these amputations. Here's some pictures of the children of Gaza. I'll point out just the one on the top left, I actually inadvertently took while I was entering and traveling between the border and the hospital. But what you see here is I was trying to take a picture of the makeshift shop. So somebody had like a shop with some supplies they were selling. And what I realized when I went back and looked at it is in the background, you have children playing on a roof that's destroyed with a kite. They're doing what kids do. These kids will be kids. All right, so let's meet Osama, also one of the medical students from the north. He was a good guy, helped me. But what I appreciated about all these students is they served as my translator, and in return I would teach them what I could. I found myself telling them many times, this is what we're going to do here, but this is what we would do in America, because I wanted to know both sides of medicine. I wanted to know what is the optimal care, what is the right antibiotic, what is the right testing we would do. But here in Gaza, we don't have that antibiotic. We don't have the CT scanner. We can't do that. But just at least know that we're going to do the best that we can, but this is how typically we would treat it.
Hi guys, I am Osama Mansour, a medical student from north of Gaza. I would like to thank you, UNC, for your efforts and for your protest. That's mean a lot for us and for people suffering every day and every hour. We hope that this war and Holocaust end very soon. So thanks again and keep going, guys.
Thank you, Osama. All right, meet the press. So, I have a lot of respect for the press. I actually have on my computer a folder of pictures just dedicated to the press. This is a picture of one of their vehicles outside Indonesia Hospital, and they tended to station themselves, at least some of their journalists, at the hospitals because that's where a lot of stuff happened. So what do we know about the journalists? So 116 more than that had been killed, 35 injured, 2 missing, 54 arrested, and too numerous to count assaults, threats, cyber attacks, and killings of family members. And what I want people to remember is it's not like the doctors that are allowed in. Journalists are not allowed in. These are journalists that live there, that are doing this work. And so when people want to influence them, they will go after their family members. That's just what they do. And historically, this is the deadliest period of time for journalists ever since that data has been recorded. So, I call them my heroes. Again, I have a goofy smile on my face. Look, what's going on in that middle picture? It's like I'm throwing up gang signs with this guy. I enjoyed it. I sincerely appreciated what they did. I had so much respect for them. I'll tell you, the guy on the right, Hisham Dagoud, is an award-winning Al Jazeera journalist. He's very kind of, they put on his vest. These things are super heavy, like 40 pounds. It's really hot. The hat they're wearing, also bulletproof, weighs a ton. And they're doing what they do. So they're witnessing atrocities, they're witnessing war crimes, they're witnessing human rights violations, and they're running towards the conflicted zones, right? And that's bravery, to get us the information. And I mentioned that you guys as college students are inspiring, are going to turn the tides. I truly believe that the college students are this generation is the one that is going to free Gaza, is going to make a difference, and I believe you're going to do it on the backs of these people, right? And they are documenting a war they are trying to survive. That's it. I mean, literally, they're in it. These are their people. These are their families, and they are documenting phones, cameras, pen and paper, and trying to live. And as you saw with the statistics, not all of them do. They pay the price. So I have another trigger warning here. So I'll introduce you to tragedy, and I think it's tough to look at some of these pictures, and I'll openly tell you that these are not the worst pictures that I have, but I think they are kind of a sampling of some of the stuff that I would see pretty much on a daily basis. And I have a story behind each and every one of these. My boss is here, Dr. Yoga Patel. How many doctors do you represent in this country? About 2,500. Without being nice, because I have a mic, where would you rank me in percentile of ability to handle stuff? Top 50%? Top 40%? Top first percentile. So that is very generous. But I say this to make a point. I felt like an utter failure. There was not a single one of these cases where I felt that I was good enough. And that's how I felt. And if you believe Dr. Patel, pretty decent doctor at least, if not first percentile. So can you imagine really, really good doctors there? And they were really good doctors that I worked with from Gaza. I mean, when it came to trauma, I would take them over some of the trauma doctors in this country, hands down. And yet, they felt probably the same way when I went and tried to lay my head down and sleep. You couldn't sleep. You cried yourself to sleep. You thought about how you weren't good enough, you weren't fast enough, you weren't skilled enough, you didn't have enough resources, and you failed, right? And he may not remember, but I told him when I left, when I finally exited, that I felt God would not forgive me for leaving these people, right? That I was there to help, I was there to serve. I failed in many ways, and then I left after failure. So I cannot imagine how these doctors go through this month after month after month, and now a year. All right, I'm going to transition here. This is Muhammad. He is a neurosurgery resident from Indonesia Hospital. So I have a bunch of pictures up here. So one day when I was supposed to leave, I told Muhammad, hey, I'm leaving. It was great working with you. Thank you for all your help. And bear in mind, he is a neurosurgeon who was working in a hospital without a CAT scan. And so people who know medicine know that's completely insane. That's like the first thing that the neurosurgeon asks us when we call them is, what does a CAT scan show? So very skilled guy. He said, hey, there's a doctor in the south. You're going back to Nasser Hospital. Doctor in the south, Dr. Tasneem. I want you to take her some stuff. So I said, okay, Muhammad, I can do this. I'm not supposed to do this because our NGO said, don't take anything for anybody. Because the problem is, if it ends up in the wrong hands, they're going to actually say the NGO was at fault. They got stuff into the wrong hands. No more missions for your whole team. You're done. So we were strictly warned not to do anything like this. And I said, okay, Muhammad, who is this person? This is your family member? And he said, no. And I said, is this someone you're going to marry? He said, yes, inshallah. After the war, I will marry her. And then he followed it by saying, please don't tell her I said this. So I said, absolutely, I will take this package for you, Muhammad. And then I met her at the hospital, and my wife will tell you, what is the first thing I asked her probably? What did I ask her when I said, are you going to marry Muhammad? And I was a little bit worried, right? Because he told me not to say it, but listen, and this is like Romeo and Juliet. I took this thing I wasn't supposed to do, and she said, yes, I intend to after the war. So these things, I give the story after the tragedy because it's meaningful, right? I think that they want life to be normal again. They hope for life to be normal again, and stories like this make me smile. All right, let's meet the students of Gaza. You've met a couple of them already: Fawad, Ilham, Iman. And again, they were instrumental in me being able to help a lot of patients there. I will say that sometimes when they were helping me with patients, the patient would leave us and then go talk to the attending doctor who was from Gaza, and then they would come back and the attending doctor would say, hey, they were saying that you're talking to the student, but they want the American doctor to take care of them. So I was flattered. I said, no, they're just a student. I'd be helping make decisions on things. So it was nice. All right, so let's meet Abdullah, see what he has to say for us.
Hey guys, I'm Abdullah Najjar, medical student from North Gaza, sir. As you know, guys, we are under attack for more than 300 days. So we need somebody to hear our voices, to see our suffering, and we want to thank you guys for doing all that. Thank you so much, University of North Carolina, for your support, your protest. So thank you so much, and God bless you.
All right, so credit to Abdullah for actually not just saying UNC, but University of North Carolina. Points off for almost saying University of Gaza, but that's okay. We'll let it slide. It's not his first language, but I appreciate all of these students, and I hope you appreciate all of these students seeing you. I promise you, I told them the stories about what you've done with the encampments, your support for the protest, and they see that, they hear that. They understand that, they appreciate that, and you've heard each and every one of them ask for more of that, right? Because it's not over for them. All right, so the students of Gaza. So more than 500 schools and universities destroyed. I mean, this is like 80%, 90%. And some of them were destroyed even after They were stopped, they were bombed once, and then being used with whatever functional part there was for shelter, and that happens on a regular basis. The United Nations has said this is a systematic obliteration of the academics. Now, what is striking to me, and I say this sometimes, is that I think education, no time in history has withholding education been something that made sense. Right? And you've seen it in history happening many times based on the location somebody is, the color of their skin, whatever it is, but never has it been okay. The West Bank and Gaza, the literacy rate was greater than 97%. We were very educated people. You could tell from the students who are speaking English very well that they're smart, right? They're smart. And so I think I worry a great deal about what's going to happen now that schools are destroyed, but you do hear about even in the refugee camps setting up schools and teachers trying to teach because it's such an important part of the culture. And now, we talked about this already, used for shelter, and you can imagine what happens to an education system when you displace almost 2 million people. It becomes very, very hard to keep track of things and to put an emphasis when you're worried about food and shelter and safety on education, and yet they do the best that they can. So, running short of time, and this is probably for a later discussion, but what can we do? This picture is one of my favorite pictures outside of Indonesia Hospital. This is the sunrise, and I enjoyed kind of the cool air and looking at it on my many days there. So we're going to ask this question to Dr. Ali. So he's one of the attending doctors. He's super smart. He really knows what he's doing medically. That is his Instagram, or Finsta, as the kids call it. Right? So feel free to give him a follow. He's got like 35,000 people. He does a lot of work in terms of education there. He also shows what he's dealing with on a regular basis. But I asked him to answer this question about what it is that we can do.
Hey everyone, this is me, Dr. Al-Ghaliz, a doctor from Gaza. We were resuscitated to help people since the beginning of this war. And I'm talking to you from the Robert Al-Shifa Hospital, as you can see. My message will be to everyone who's asking, how can I help, how can I support? I think there are endless ways of supporting and helping that can be very effective, but I want to focus on 5 things that could be the most important. First one is boycott, divestment, and financial disruption of any institution, organization, or company that supports the acts against humanity. 2. Reach out to media and talk about Palestine and people in Gaza. 3. Fundraising to people in here is very critical because people in here are in desperate need of help. 4. Educate the community about Palestine and the reality behind Palestine and Israel, because education is the foundation of activism. 5. Reach out to students, graduates, and postgraduates in here. Help them to make their dreams come true, because this is the best way how to build a nation. And always remember that Martin Luther King once said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. You are the one who can change. Do not give up. Do not stop protesting. Because Alice Walker once said, the most common way people give up their power by thinking they do not have any. You are the power. You are the one who can change.
So I really appreciate Dr. Ali for doing this. Even more so that he was working a shift at Al-Shifa Hospital, where they had just redone the ER. He tends to work at a few different ERs, including the one that I primarily worked at. I will tell you, it pains me to be wearing Carolina blue because I'm an NC State grad. But what I will tell you is he asked me, he said, oh, what famous people went to UNC? So I sent him some link. And he was like, these are all like sports guys. So he ended up quoting like Martin Luther King because you guys just don't have any grads, any intellectual quality. So, all right, well, so that is all I have. Again, I really appreciate all of you. It's been an honor. I know that you guys are doing great things. You'll continue to do great things. And if I was able to inspire you to an atom's weight, that is something that came from God and not me. As going there was certainly privilege upon me, and not a privilege that I bestowed upon any of you people. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pathan, for that beautiful and heartfelt presentation. Before we break for Maghrib, I would like to ask everybody to keep in mind that while we're praying and making dua, to keep the people of Palestine in your heart.
Absolutely. And I do want to let you guys know that, okay, I feel a little bad saying this now. I want to let you guys know that the food will be served after Maghrib. Don't pray too fast. Trust me, there's enough for everybody. Or at least that's what they told me, so don't get mad if it runs out. But yeah, we're about to break.
We're about to break, but make sure you guys come back for not just for dinner, but also for a live Q&A session where you can enter your questions and Dr. Pathan can answer them live.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be one of the more engaging parts of the event. It'll be a lot of fun. Please join us back after you're done eating.
Maghrib prayer is going to be in the gift closet outside, so exit any